Hello and welcome to this interview. Today I'm joined by AMS. He's quite a legendary player in Europe, probably one of the best performers in Europe, especially outside of the top team seven over the last year or so. He's been around for a fairly long amount of time. He's not one of the newer players. He's sort of middling, I guess. And so I'm going to sort of start right at the beginning of your Prem career, I suppose. So did you feel like pressured in your first season of Prem, given like you were already in like a top team basically, right? Like
Yeah.
how much pressure did you feel playing with people like Zebasai in the first season?
Well, it was quite nerve-wracking at first, for sure. Like, I've always been that kind of player that's always been like, it's always been like very mental for me, and I get like nervous and tense quite easily. So at the start, it was like quite hard to like perform consistently and just keep myself together, really. But like once I got used to it, I really loved that team. That team was awesome. So they were really awesome to play with, especially like you said, Sebozai. It's like I've learned like so much from that guy. And I feel like I took a lot of ways from his play style as well and applied them to my own. I think that team is probably the coolest team I've ever been on, for sure.
That's quite funny actually, because that was going to be my next question about Zebasai. Is like you seem to like you have a lot of similarities with him, right? Your like placings, you placed a lot of seconds and thirds, but not many wins.
Yeah.
You've been able to switch classes fairly like easily. It looks like, and yeah, so like yeah, you've already said he was like someone you looked up to and learned a lot from. But like, would you say that he's like influenced you the most, or which player would actually have influenced you the most out of all of the ones you've played with or just watched?
I feel like Sebo probably like influenced me the most as a player, just because when I started playing in that team, I would be watching a lot of his demos, and just like when he was teaching me to play, he was teaching me to play the way he was kind of playing. So it just kind of naturally happened, and it was like a couple seasons, so it was quite a lot of time to just learn from him. So like as a player, he probably influenced me the most. But I think like what influenced me the most in TF2 was probably Seven, which is the most recent team. I think they really turned my head around about playing TF2 and how you're supposed to do it. And I think I've learned the most from playing in that team, just because Cadis is he's coaching that team, and he just like he could commit time to just like personally mentoring people and just making it good for everybody and me. So I think that team definitely influenced me the most to what I am now. But I think like an individual player must have been Sebozai for sure. Yeah.
Your first two seasons, you made playoffs both times, which is very unusual for someone who just comes into Prem. So did that give you a sort of confidence? Did you think you'd see yourself just going on and winning loads and loads of seasons after that?
No, not really. I think I always felt quite lucky to be picked up for PK. And I think to this day, I still think I was really lucky to get picked up in that team. I think there was a lot of people who were way better than me, but they didn't get the same chances I did. For the entire duration of BK, it was always on my mind on what I was going to do after, because everybody knew that team wasn't something that they would want to take to LAN. It was like a bunch of like new people, like me and Herpy, and people were off-classing and stuff. So everybody knew that it wasn't going to be something that would attend an I series, for example. So I would always think like, what's my place going to be in TF2 after that team, because I knew I wasn't a part of the bigger plan for this like big names who formed the team after BK. They formed Nerd Rage together with Stark and Sebo. But like luckily me and Herpy had like developed enough as players in that team to like make our own team, which ended up being quite good, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. TLR.
Yeah.
Yeah, so season 21, you've got this new team, you've got yourself, Herpy, and then 4 new players, right? Take me through the lineup. Like you got a really interesting mix of like very good aim-based players like Nico, and you've also got the super experienced guys like Hiss. So like, what was that like? Like, how did they mesh together and all that stuff?
I think like in that era there was like a lot of like really talented like players that were like up and coming. Like it's not the same as like now, where there's some people who could be good, but there's no like huge like crazy good aimers, or just like this kind of like people like Captain and Happy Cool and Nico, and like basically everyone from that like season 19 season 20 era. Like there was so much talent, and like what me and Herpy like saw was that there were so many people we could just fetch from these lower prem teams and just like actually make like a top prem team. And we started with Heis as someone who hadn't been playing for a while, but we knew he was like a caller, and that's what we needed for the lineup. So he's the first person we asked. And he's who like he was basically immediately in, like he wanted to play TF2, and he was really like happy that we wanted to have him lead it, and he was really ambitious about it as well. So we got him in, and then like the rest, I think the rest of the lineup was quite obvious. Like just basically we just went down the list. Like Shadowburn's sick, Nico's sick. Just asked them both. They were both in, like pretty much from the start, and yeah, I think that team was like probably one of my best like experiences of playing TF2 as well, just because it was like the players were just something really special, like something you don't really have nowadays, I feel.
When you got to the you got pretty, you topped the leaderboard of like the regular season, right? Did you feel you were a bit punching above your weight, or did you think you could go all the way and win the season?
No, that season was like we didn't deserve the first place seed, no matter how fun it is to say that just to piss off Stark and Sebo and these guys, because like we beat Reason, right? Everybody remembers that game, or a lot of people probably remember that game. It was an awesome game. We played against them, and we managed to take the win against them. And then they ended up losing to Danger Dogs as well, I believe, in their next official. So I think they just completely redid their roster and got like Mike and Shokin and Nox, I think. So that team just like got so much better, and then they ended up playing Nerd Rage in the official. So we actually got to play the easier version of Reason than Nerd Rage did, and that gave us more points. And we I think we tied with Nerd Rage, so like we ended up on top of the table. We weren't the best team in Prem, but we got that position because Reason did a roster swap mid-season, which is funny because obviously for me and Herpy especially, it was an awesome moment to finish above them in the season, because they had just ditched us to make their own super team for LAN. So it felt really awesome to be there. Then, but yeah, I don't think we were the best or even the second best team that season. I think we came in close third, I think.
So losing to Reason in the final felt a bit inevitable to you then?
Yeah, obviously then we felt like we could like take down everyone. Thought we were the best, but that's just how it is when you're playing at that stage. But like nowadays, I can admit that like we were never gonna beat either of those teams. They were both far better than us. We just had a lot of deathmatch, and we seemed to tilt a lot of teams. Herbie had quite an ego, and so did I. They were very fresh, developed egos, so they were probably very annoying to play against.
Yeah, going into LAN, his Heis and his arm was like, how much did you expect to do very well at the LAN, and then after he injured himself, he got War. Like, what changed? Like, did that change your view? Did you still want to go and win? Like, what happened then?
It was a pretty like disappointing experience to like put a good team together and like be doing well, and then have all that stuff happen before the LAN. I think losing Heis was probably surprisingly a bigger deal than losing Shadowburn, because while Shadowburn was an insane player, I think Heis was what really brought the team together. The Heis was basically the only like brain behind it all. And while we tried to have War fill that role, I think he did a good job, and I think War was great at LAN. It's still not the same thing that Heis was. Like, War is he doesn't have the same sort of the thing in his voice. He can't be as commanding and as consistent with his calling. Yeah. So I think no matter like even though I think if you put if you had to choose between War and Heis on who's a better caller, I think War could do it better. But he just doesn't have the commanding voice that Heis does. So I think that's really what we missed. We missed someone who's able to command the team and keep it all together. We never had that after we lost Heis. So
yeah, I think TLR was actually a great like symbol of a team which had lots and lots of aim, and then this one guy like moving all the pieces around, getting into the right place, like directing the missiles basically. And then once you brought in War, who was just can't do the same job as Heis, he sort of just couldn't do that, I guess. But you did have Alpha, who obviously knew a lot about teams like Froyotech, right? How much did Alpha contribute to I-55?
I think he played good. I think he had like the highest roamer stats in the groups or something. I think he like played good the first day, as we all did. And the second day, I think he fell a bit short, as we all did. So it's really hard to rate individual performances like that LAN, just because I think we just like struggled as a team on the second day, while we did really well on the first day. But I think Alpha he was a good player, and he was a joy to play with. So he was good. I think he was the best replacement we could have had. Even though there was like other people as well available, like maybe Silentis. I can't recall the other names, but we had a ton of people in mind. We ended up just kind of going for it with Alpha, just like, you want to get him in? Sure, let's do it. And it was like a split-second decision, basically. And I think he played better than a lot of people expected.
Yeah. Granary versus Froyotech. How much does that match like stick in your mind? Did that feel really special at the time to tie with Froyo? Like, you're the only real teams, except for Nerd Rage, to actually like challenge them properly on a map. I guess outside of Nerd Rage and Reason, you're the only other team that could do it.
Yeah, that match was like really hyped to play, and like we were like the entirety of those group stages leading up to that Froyo game, we were like so hyped for all of them, literally shouting from the first mid fight to the end of the groups. Like, everybody was so into it that I just don't think there was any stopping us that first day. Like, no matter how much we got outplayed by other teams, we'd always find ways to just turn it in our favor. Like, I specifically remember playing against Froyotech, and just playing against them, and the kind of pressure they give you when they play, it feels different than playing a lot of other teams, because they just execute really well, and they don't give you any room for free, and like this sort of stuff that, like, even then I didn't feel that when playing against the European teams. I only felt that playing against Froyo. It was just something different, and the whole game I felt getting very outplayed. I felt like I wasn't ready to like play against these people, and we still managed to tie the game just out of this sort of like individual plays like that spy backstab by Alpha, I think, and like Nico had like a nice sniper play at the end or something. But like, yeah, that's what we were all about, just hype and really sick individual moments. Not so much we weren't anything special as a team, and I think that Froyo game was like one of the highlights of the LAN for me, for sure.
Yeah, everyone had fucking clutch moments in that game. That was insane. But like, you were playing against, like, would you say that Banny performance at I-55 on Soldier, do you think that was one of the best like performances you've seen at LAN? Like, that was pretty fat. And then added to the like Clockwork and Blaze, do you think anyone could have actually beat them? Like, even when you're watching Nerd Rage play them and beat them in the upper bracket, did you actually think they'd still lose the LAN?
I think at the LAN, I thought that it was going to be a European Grand Final. After Reason started stepping up, and when Reason kind of should have beat Froyo in that best of 3 but didn't. But like, coming up to the final, I think I was pretty sure that Froyotech was going to win it, just because Froyo they're just such a good team, and like, from my perspective of like thinking about it, then it's like I played against Nerd Rage a lot, and I'd be able to handle Nerd Rage and do fine against them. But Froyo were like really difficult to play against and really different, and they just felt like they were on another level. And I still think they were just better than all the European teams at that event. Maybe I would argue Reason could have beat them in the best of 5, but they fell short in the best of 3 beforehand. So, but yeah, I think Froyo, and just like, yeah, Banny's pocket performance as well. That I-55 Froyo team was really, really, really good.
So after LAN, like always after Insomnia, there's like a little bit of a slump the next season, right? Nerd Rage split up, a lot of their players disappeared, Stock went to Reason. And you picked up a guy called Concrete, who, like you, had never had any Prem experience before he came to the team, and he came into the team as like officially the second best team in Prem. And you stuck with Warrior, and all this stuff happened. Like, did you think you'd actually win that season? Like, how disappointed were you by that? Because that was pretty bad, right? It was your first non-playoff season in Prem.
Yeah. Honestly, that like season after the LAN for me is kind of a blur, just because it was really bad, and we just kind of played it, and then we're like, that was really bad, and just moved on. But I remember Concrete. Yeah, I think Concrete was like he wasn't bad, but he got a lot of flack just because everybody was really disappointed in how we were doing. And I think that was around the time when Herpy kind of like he just started becoming worse and worse, and like at LAN Herpy was amazing, and then after LAN he was just not doing very well, and getting really pissed off and stuff. So I think like as a team together we just fell apart after LAN. And it just didn't work anymore. And War as well. I think War's performance at I-55, he was doing really well, like really well. And then after the LAN, I think probably the worst teammate I've played with, just because he just didn't he didn't care basically. Like he just kind of showed up and played. If I remember, like he didn't really like put effort in, and he just streamed the scrims and just. Yeah, I didn't really like that experience after LAN at all with those guys. I think the team strived when there was something to play for. When it was like huge like iSeries, like yeah, it's like a big event. It's like every game is like important and every game matters and every win is like crazy. But afterwards, we just came into it with ETF duel with a bad attitude and a pretty bad lineup and people half caring. So I don't think we deserved to finish any higher than we did.
Yeah, so yeah, clearly from what you said, you needed a refresh the next season, so you started this public clear or Saints team. Yeah, and you first season you had Onkaya, Smear. I can't say I remember any of the other players so much in the first season, but yeah, you made playoffs, and the season after that, you picked up some guys who looked like some of the best players in Prem, right? Like you picked up Pires, Tiger at the time. So how come you actually performed like worse statistically once you picked up these big players than you had before? Was it a friend thing, or I don't know? Take me through that.
I don't recall the results and the teams we competed against both seasons, but I think the major difference between the first public career lineup and the second one was that in the second one we had Atomic, and I think we had Beavern at one point as well for the LAN, and like Atomic and Beavern was a god-awful scout duo. While they're both individually like pretty good players, I think it just like when you think about it, like the way they play, it doesn't work together at all.
Yeah, they're both like aggressive, right?
Yeah, they're both really like they both really prefer to be aggressive players, and like you couldn't we ended up having like no like dedicated pocket scout really, because like we had this problem with Atomic like pretty much ever since we picked him up, and we realized how much he like actually fed. We kind of like started putting him on like pocket scout and stuff, and just kind of like, yo, you should kind of calm down with what you're doing. Especially since I was playing like way more aggressive on pocket soldier back then as well, so. I was going deep all the time, and we'd have Atomic just run around and die as well. So I think that like these things didn't really work well together. And yeah, Atomic and Pires was like a weird combo as well. Because while Pires was like he had huge potential to be really good, and I think he was really good, but he had a lot of like mental issues. He could never get over what was happening in his head and really like keep himself together. Like when he was playing bad, he was playing worse and worse, and he was getting disappointed with himself, and he would never like really get himself out of that hole. But when he was playing well, which was usually in scrims when there was no pressure to do well, I think that's when he really showed what he could have been. But he could never really get over his like self-confidence issues, I guess. And yeah, like I said, Atomic was always really aggressive and just not a fit for the team or what we wanted to do. Just didn't fit in at all. Like when he played with the Russians, he was good, and I think that's where he should have stayed. I think it was a mistake on both of our part to pick him up for sure.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the first season you had Flip. It was like a much more passive scout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So through that time at a public player, you had a sort of like a mini sort of like fun rivalry between you and Skeej's team, like Comfortably Spanked, or whatever they were called in the first place, Infused. Like you went to the DreamHacks and played against them. Like they were kind of sort of like your rivals, I guess. It was kind of fun to watch you guys play each other. You tied both ETF12 games you played against each other. So did you ever feel like that was a rivalry? Did you just enjoy playing against them or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. That team was like, for me, it was like really like the only reason to really care when playing. I feel like was that team, and I feel the same goes for a lot of them when it came to us, because like it was like rivalry, and we took players from them and they weren't happy. I think we took Figer from them. And yeah, it was like there was like we didn't. It wasn't so much about winning against them as it was about not wanting to lose or wanting to not lose against them, basically. I think that the way it was concluded as well was really awesome at DreamHack. The way we did that comeback on the third map in that series. I think that conclusion to the rivalry between us was pretty awesome and really satisfying. And yeah, losing to Full Tilt after that, as expected, I think, or was it Crowns? I think it was Crowns. It didn't really matter, because it was really cool to just beat that team. And yeah, they're all like really cool people as well. And yeah, I think like the rivalry with those guys, I think that's gonna keep going if I actually manage to build my own team again and compete against Champ.gg, hopefully, which is kind of the same people. Yeah, I like that.
It was really cool actually to see it land. Like it was like their rivalry but amplified at DreamHack. It was really, really cool. So after that, you had. See, the thing about you going to Insomnia is that every single time you've had quite a disorganized team. Like your team's basically like a mix that's only come together in the last few days. Like you've had Warrior, Alpha. Like you probably didn't scrim with Alpha at all before the LAN, right?
We scrimmed a couple times, but it didn't really add any value. It was yeah.
So at I-58, you've got this team. It's like Funds, Flushy, you, Smear, and is it Tiger?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you again come up against Froyotech, and you have a very exciting Badlands game, which is like one of the most intense maps I've seen at the entire LAN. So like you're very like shouting a lot that game. You're clearly very driven for that one. Like take us through that one. How did that Froyotech compare to the other one, especially?
The Senex versus Froyo at I-58.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't recall. I think we were getting rolled that map, and then we started like coming back. But we weren't able to like finish the comeback properly. I think they had like a pause, and then everyone was like, "Oh shit, they paused, we lost." And I think we didn't really come back with the same mindset after that either. I guess we were just talking about how annoying it was that they could just pause and break our momentum. And there was just like not much time left after that either. So yeah, I think that Froyo tech was probably the worst Froyo that's ever come to LAN. I think TLR was probably the worst pocket in the invite group, or I don't know, maybe he'd be competing for that spot with me, but I think TLR was not good, and I think their medic wasn't that great either, and yet it was just like not a good lineup. I think Patty was having a really rough time on Roamer. I remember him not really getting much done. I think that Froyo tech wasn't great, and I think their third place finish was pretty much what I think they deserved. So yeah.
Yeah. So also you played against Jasmine T. I think you only managed to play one best of one against them, right? Because you went out to Full Tilt.
Yeah. I think that was the first game we played when we arrived on that LAN, and it was like I think our only goal that LAN was really just to beat Jasmine T. And to this day, I think we could have beat Jasmine T, and we would have if we had the chance to play them in the knockouts, but we never had that. Instead, we had the first game of the whole LAN in the group stages against them on Granary, which we had actually never scrimmed before the LAN. So I think that was like quite disappointing and quite unlucky to get this map that we don't play, we hadn't played properly, as the first map against the team that we wanted to overcome, and then still get it pretty close. I think we lost like 3-2. So yeah, it was a disappointment for sure, and not a good start to the LAN. But yeah, even more disappointing was that we never actually got the chance to play against them in the knockouts. So I still think if he got the chance to play against them in the knockouts, we would have beat them, because we beat Full Tilt on Vidact like 3-0, and we weren't a bad team. On paper, we were a good team, I think, and that LAN we were doing okay. Like people are always gonna look back at it as like, oh yeah, that team, that SNX team was like bottom invite group. They weren't good and they lost the map to a high team. That's what people are gonna think. But we took a map from Full Tilt and we would have played Jasmine T if we got the chance to play them for sure. Because I never felt any issue playing against that team at all, especially at that event. So I really think we would have done it for sure. But it's just unfortunate what happened with it, I guess.
Yeah, so your next season after LAN was a lot better than before on TLR. Like this time, you got to the grand final. I'm just going to call the team Thanks Nursey because I can't be bothered to follow all the names that you changed it to. Was Nursey a very fun teammate to play with? Do you think that she contributed in a way that you've never played with a medic like that before? What was the reason for picking up Nursey? Was she just available, or was there more reason to it than that?
I had played with Nursey before, and I know for a fact that Nursey is probably the best medic in the world. Or that's what I used to think, at least. I think now that I've played with Raymond, it's trickier to call that, but
he is a fucking mechanical god.
Yeah. When, like in the past, when I had played with Nursey, I knew she was sick, and then I got a win for that team just because I just look at the situation with medics in Prem, and I think that it's not good. So I think we could have had Flushy, but I just didn't think Flushy fit in there, and I didn't really want to keep playing Flushy's TF2. I kind of wanted to play the TF2 that I wanted to play, and I wanted to play Scout. Like these people, they didn't really even agree with me playing Scout in the first place at all. Like I'd have people like Flushy message me, like Flushy and Smira and these people that like message me and be like, you want to make a team? Like let's make a really good team. You play Pocket, it's gonna be great. And I'm like, I'm probably gonna play Scout with some friends, and they'd be like, you on Scout? Like that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Let's make a good team instead. And I like a couple weeks after that, I remember like actually having them be okay with me playing Scout in their team as well. But at that point, I didn't want to turn back from the project that I started, because I was really enjoying playing with like these people, and like a couple new people and like a couple really good people. So that team was really awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, like to the question, like to the main question, Nursey's like probably like the best medic I've played with together with Raymond. I really don't want to like try to call which one of them is better, because they're both like extremely good. Yeah, Nursey is just a joy to play with every time.
Yeah. Did you, after this season when he came second, did you think that you peaked? Do you think did you after that like grand final think in your head like, oh man, I'm never gonna win anything outside of 7?
I never like expected to win that grand final. Wait, what are we talking about again?
Season 25 with Thanks Nursey.
Like, yeah.
After that, did you think, okay, I have to join 7 if I want to win anything? Is that where you were at, or did you still think you could make a team that could beat 7?
I think while you like, if you look at like my track record and where I've like finished, I think like you're gonna look at it like, wow, this guy's probably really pissed off. He's always second. But I think like I've usually been in teams that have been expected to finish second. I don't think I've ever really been in teams that have been expected to win. Like no one would expect Thanks Nursey to beat 7 or Crowns back then in that final. So going into it, like you're always gonna want to win, and you're always gonna think in your head that you're gonna win. But like afterwards, like yeah, it's like we obviously we didn't win that final. So yeah, I didn't think about it that way. This like 7 offer, I wasn't like desperate for it at all. It was just something really neat that happened.
Yeah. Well, that being said, though, it is, you must have been quite excited to go to California to play an international LAN with 7.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome. Like everything about the whole experience was awesome. Like the team, like I literally love every single one of these people on that team. They were so much fun to be with at that LAN. And just like the team gameplay wise, like I think like basically exactly the way I want to play TF2. Even if that sounds weird, I think it's exactly the way I would have wanted to play TF2 for a long time. But I've just never had people who I could play TF2 like that with. And I've never had like people who would have been okay with me leading the team. So like you've never really seen a team play TF2 the way I want them to play. The closest thing to that is probably Thanks Nursey. So I think just everything about that team was perfect, and the amount of time like Cadis especially put into that, like he put so much time into improving the team and improving players individually, as well as just getting everything together and fundraised and keeping the brand up. All of that, he took care of all of that. He just like make me record my games and just watch them with me, and it like probably in that short amount of time in 7, I learned more than I had ever learned in TF2 before, which is it was just quite crazy. They're a really good team and really awesome people, and I really hope that they stick together forever, because I wanna be there to compete against them now that I'm in this position. I want to, you know, have the goal of like getting there myself without having them do it for me now.
Do you think that you're a big stage player? Like, that was the first LAN you've been to where they actually had a stage to play on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think that the stage made a big difference to you? Do you want to step up your performance on the big stage?
Yeah, I think like I've always been like pretty nervous to play well in these situations where it matters, and that's probably been like my biggest like flaw as a player, is that I've always played good when it hasn't mattered, and then played average or worse when it's been like important games. But for this entire LAN, for the first time I was able to like compose myself and never really be nervous or never really doubt myself at all. I was actually able to like keep it together and play well, I think, even on the stage. So I think there was like a turning point for me, like attitude wise at least. And yeah, I wouldn't say it made me play that much better, but it is pretty cool to like have people scream in the background when you do stuff and hit air shots, just have them react to it, and it's something probably many people don't get to experience. So I'm really just thankful for being able to do it, really, because it was quite crazy. But I wouldn't say it makes me play better, but nowadays I'm definitely able to keep myself like cool when I'm playing there, even on the stage. So that was something I noticed, at least, and it was really cool.
Let's say there's a world in which TF2 is big enough to support like 2 teams from each like continent to go to all the LANs, right? So you're going to a LAN, and Froyotech are going to be there, and 7 are going to be there, and your team's going to be there. Who do you want to beat more?
Who do I want to be?
Who do you want to beat more? Froyotech or 7?
Froyotech for sure. You know, 7 are you know, my buddies now. I like them. Like if I ever get to a stage in TF2 where I'd be in a team that could beat them, which I highly doubt could ever happen. But this goal would still always be to like beat Froyotech. I think for me, like a much newer goal, like when I went to like I-58 and stuff, I never thought like, oh, we're gonna beat Froyo, you know? It was just kind of like, yeah, let's just perform. But just playing in 7 for that short duration, I really want to be able to like attend I-61 with a lineup that can make Americans 3rd place again. Like that's really what I want to do. And yeah, it's like it's just I guess it's the way some of them like present themselves. Is that makes you really want to think like, oh, I really want to beat these people, you know? It's also just that they're so good that being able to beat them eventually would be pretty mind blowing. I think it's because you just look at like even I like. I'm not the best player, but I guess I'm pretty like high up there when it comes to like ranking me. I think I look up to Froyotech in a way where being able to beat them would be crazy insane, and I would have to be really good. So I think that would always be the dream. Yeah.
Are you the sort of guy who used to watch lots of ESEA matches back when you were like coming up in like 2012 or anything? Did you used to watch Mix Up and Throtech, or not Throtech, but like Banny's teams play?
No, not really. I was always just kind of focused on watching EU. I never really watched NATF2 that much. Actually, I basically never watched NATF2 except for just iSeries and stuff like this, and just to prepare with teams beforehand. You obviously watch them, but I don't really watch NATF2 otherwise, and I never really have. It's just no particular reason. I was always so into the EU scene that the NA scene seems so weird, and you don't know all the teams and the players, so there's obviously less in it for you to watch it.
So after Thanks Mercy, after Rewind LAN, you tried to go for a bit of a move into professional esports with Gale Force, who were also in California, I think. Like, how did that end? Like, do you feel very disappointed? Do you feel even a bit robbed, maybe, that you aren't in that team?
It's a weird one. It's like all I really wanted was just to really play with my friend. Like, Muma just kind of like hit me up, like, yo, I could totally like get you a spot on my team if you want to. And I think I like said no at first as well. Like, I'm not good at that game. I don't know if I want to play that game. Just like, it's not worth it. And then the second time he kind of managed to convince me that I can get good enough and it's gonna be awesome, and we're gonna move to the US and we have a gaming house and it's gonna be epic, and I'm gonna get a salary and I'm gonna live playing Overwatch. So at that stage I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll put my everything in, and I played the game a lot and I scrimped with them a lot, and it was getting better and better and better, and I was actually having a good time, and that team was really awesome. I liked all of those guys, and it was just a really like a pretty good environment to learn in as well, and they did a good job of like teaching me and making me better. So like for the longest time I thought it was in the bag. I thought, I'm in the team, everything's going good, and that's kind of what they were telling me as well, is that they enjoy playing with me and they see potential in me and they want to get me in. And at like the beginning, I think 3 of them or 4 of them weren't contracted, and it was a question mark whether the team would get picked up by the org at all, because the org, for whatever reason, might not want to sign them apparently. So at that point I started getting kind of scared and like, maybe it's not happening, maybe I should just go play TF2 again, it doesn't look good. And then what ended up happening was that all of them got signed, but I didn't. So I found out about that from Muma, and it was just like, what I was told basically was that the org doesn't want to commit to me yet, and they want to trial someone else. They were trialing someone else for all of next week. So yeah, I just basically told Muma that I don't want to do this, like be uncertain about this. Like if I'm gonna make a life decision to play a video game for a living, and move to the United States, and I want to be sure that it's happening, and I don't wanna not know what's gonna happen to me in the future. Whereas basically I kind of called it off myself by just going back to play TF2. Whereas like now it's 100% that it's not happening. Maybe there was a chance before, but I didn't want to wait to see if there's a chance. I just wanted to be able to tell my family and everyone whether it's going to happen or not. They just like, I'd have people call me every day like, it was happening with that, tell me as soon as you know, because they obviously, it's a pretty big thing if I just leave my life behind and move to another country to play a game. So I just didn't like how uncertain it all was, and the communication between the org and the players, and I didn't like any of that stuff at all. So it kind of scared me away from it, and yeah, now I'm playing the game that I actually like playing again. So I'm still happy regardless.
Yeah, I think that's quite a fair position, to be honest. Wanting to know whether or not you're going to actually get in before you actually move to America and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
How long do you see yourself playing TF2 for? Like, are you going to keep going for as long as you like, as long as you can? Like, are you still motivated? Like, how motivated do you still feel?
I've never been not motivated to play TF2. I've always had times where I've had like, rough teams and rough weeks and stuff, and I felt like it's not so much fun. But as of now, I can't imagine my life without TF2 really, because like the past 4 years or something soon, or even more than that. I've just done nothing but played this game every evening. So it's like giving TF2 up. I don't see that happening to me anywhere in the near future. And this whole like quitting for Overwatch thing, I wasn't. I always wanted to come back to TF2 if it went badly, and I love playing TF2, so that's what's important to me. I think now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go back to school, and I'm gonna start just playing TF2 in the evenings again, and I'm just gonna live how I used to, because I'm perfectly fine with doing that. So I think I'm not planning to quit TF2 anytime soon, and I think even if the competition isn't as great, or even if it's progressively losing players and becoming smaller, I still love playing the game. So that's what I'm gonna keep doing.
Do you think that you're the best aimer in Europe?
No.
Who would you say is like, where do you think you can get to that level? Do you think you can become a godlike player, or do you think there are guys who will overtake you?
I still think I'm improving all the time. Even though I've played for a long time, I still think I'm improving. And I don't see any new player really maybe overtaking me in that way. Or obviously there's exceptions. Like I think 7 is gonna make Puaskari really good. But like I don't really think about the new players and whether I have to defend myself from getting overtaken by them. I just I'm pretty confident in my position in Prem, and I'm pretty confident I'll be able to build a team if I don't have one. So I'm fine with like my current skill level. I still feel myself improving all the time, and especially recently, I felt like I had plateaued for quite a while, where I wasn't really improving or getting better results for a long time. But after this 7 thing, I really feel like I can make a team that can compete with 7 and hopefully finish second in Prem at least.
Do you think you'll ever get tired of second? Do you think you'll ever end up feeling like entitled to winning the season eventually? Like, let's say that 7 has a complete roster reshuffle because enough of their players quit, so they fill all their players with like their ranks with new players. So like captain goes, all these players go. Do you think at that point you'll deserve a season?
I think winning an ETF2L season, for me, it's gonna happen eventually. I don't think I'm gonna quit the game and not have won an ETF2L season. I think winning a major event, that's what I'm not sure if it's gonna happen to me or not, but I'm happy it hasn't happened actually, because that means I still have the drive to do it, the drive to like get there. Whereas if we had won Rewind, I'd feel a lot more accomplished than I do. Maybe I would have actually, kept playing Overwatch or something. Like if I didn't have anything to like come back to, if it would have felt like I had won and that was it. But I like as long as I haven't won anything that matters, as that I still have a reason to like play a lot and try to get really good, basically. But I feel like even if it happens one day, that even if I win something major one day, I still think it's not gonna conclude my career at that point. It might, but I don't think it will. I think I've loved this game for such a long time, and I keep really loving this game. I think it's not gonna. It doesn't really make a difference in my head whether I win or lose.
Yeah, so from the way you've been speaking, I'm guessing you're not like one of those players who just lives for LANs, and like if there were no LANs, you'd still be playing, right?
I'd probably still be playing. I definitely wouldn't care as much, because LANs really are the biggest like motivator for me, especially in TF2, because I always feel like at home at LAN when playing. Maybe I don't enjoy LANs so much in like the kind of like socializing with people kind of way that a lot of people do. I actually just enjoy playing TF2 at a LAN. I think TF2 at LAN is just really awesome to play. It's just completely different than online. It's always been like every LAN always like peaks like my like experience. Kind of like it just becomes the new best thing that I've ever done, kind of. So especially, I feel that especially about Rewind. It's just playing TF2 at a LAN is awesome, and obviously meeting people do and all that. I'm not huge on that, but it's always like nice. It's always awesome to meet your meet your internet friends. Especially like playing TF2, as nerdy as that sounds. It's at LAN. It's always awesome.
No, of course. Is there any like last words you'd like to say? Any call outs, anything like that?
I don't know. Shout out to my now current team with Smear and Herp that we're making. We got some pretty big names lined up for trials, hopefully. So it might actually be the fattest team in a while. But we'll see.
Would you crush 7? Please say yes.
We'll try our best. But we might throw, just because I like 7 too much.
Of course. Okay, well thank you, Ams. That was a good interview.
Thank you.